In today's video, we're going to be installing an oil pressure gauge kit. If you guys have a Triumph or BSA motorcycle and purchase one of our kits, watch this entire video for the complete installation. All right, let's start going over the details. There's a few different variations that we have on the website, but for the most part, the Triumph and BSA kits are the same. Here we have the oil pressure gauge unit itself. This one is oil filled and it has a stainless steel clamp designed to fit 7/8 handlebars. Next up in the kit is package oil line with the proper length to fit most applications. Here we have two different adapters designed to fit the back of the oil pressure gauge. Again, these two adapters will only fit the back of the oil pressure gauge itself. So we have a straight fitting and then we have a 90 or elbow fitting. Depending on your application and how much clearance you have, you should be able to figure out which type of fitting you need for your application. Before we start talking about the fittings that you see on the screen, I highly recommend that you take the time to figure out which type of fitting that you need to fit your timing cover. Triumph typically had three different types of fittings: 3/8/26, 1/8 inch NPS, and also 1/8 inch NPT, while BSA retained 1/8 inch NPS and also 1/8 inch NPT. If you're unsure which type of fitting that you need, there's a lot of information online and also on our website to help you decipher and figure out which type of fitting you need for your application. Although BSA models are typically straightforward, the problem is with Triumph timing covers because timing covers get damaged and oftentimes swapped out. So if you have a later timing cover on an earlier Triumph, it might throw you off as to which type of fitting that you need. So please be aware of that. As of current, we're offering two different types of fitting that will fit into the timing cover. So the two fittings that are on the right-hand side are going to fit inside your timing cover, while the fitting on the top left is actually going to fit in the adapter on the top right. I know it sounds a little bit confusing, but in the next clip, you'll see a little bit more information on how to set it up. For those curious to know why we're not including the 1/8x27 NPT fitting, that fitting was only fitted to 1968 Triumph and BSA models and some 1969 models. Based off the recording and filming of this video, if you didn't get an 1/8 NPT fitting, it's simply because we haven't provided it yet. However, if you did get it, that means we've changed the kit, we found a source, and we provided it for you. Earlier in the video, I showed you a fitting on the top left and on the right-hand side, and I said that you must join them together. This is what it looks like when you thread them together. The threads on the left will thread into your timing cover. The 1/8 inch NPS standalone adapter is designed to thread directly into your timing cover. Please do not attempt to thread the adapter into the other adapter provided in the kit. Here again are the two adapters that are designed specifically for the oil pressure gauge. We talked about these a little bit earlier. I just wanted to give you guys some visual reference as far as how it works. Currently, the oil pressure gauge kit is coming with two different size Allen keys. The keys will help you install or remove the oil pressure gauge from your handlebars. Now that we covered all the contents that come in the oil pressure gauge kit, let's install a new oil pressure gauge kit on this 1970 Triumph Sunset Tripper. Let's go over some of the tools that I'll be using to install the oil pressure gauge kit. Please keep in mind that all the tools that are shown here are not supplied in the kit. Here we have a caliper, two different size wrenches, cutters, and zip ties. This job should take no more than 10 minutes, and you should be able to do it inside or outside your workshop. Now that we've covered all the tools that we'll need for this tutorial, let's grab a wrench and remove the oil pressure sending unit. Now that the sending unit has been removed, we're going to use our mid-tutorial calipers to measure the OD of the threads. Without using a thread pitch gauge, you can use one of the adapters out of the kit, so I decided to use a 3/8/26 and mesh the teeth. As you can clearly see, the teeth do not mesh. Using the 1/8 NPS adapter in the kit, I went ahead and meshed the teeth, and as you can clearly see, everything looks really good, so it is a right thread pitch. So I know that the original oil pressure sending unit is 1/8x27 National Pipe Straight. Now that we have the proper fitting selected, which is 1/8x27 National Pipe Straight, we're going to install the adapter into the timing cover. Once the adapter has been installed, we're going to tighten it up. We don't want to go too tight. We just want to make sure it's nice and snug. Then we're going to grab our package oil line. We're going to grab the line and we're going to install it into the fitting. To properly install the oil line, when you cut it, make sure it's square and there's no jagged edges or any burrs. Insert it all the way into the fitting till it bottoms out. Then you're going to tug on it the opposite way. When you tug on it the opposite way, it compresses the line, and that's what provides the seal. Now that the oil line is in the fitting, we're going to start working on the routing. Routing the oil line is really a personal choice. You'll have to figure out what works best for you. I like running it all the way up the frame with the few zip ties holding it in place. With the oil line running up the frame all the way to the top of the bike, we're going to take the oil pressure gauge and figure out where we want to mount it. And based off what we see, we like the oil pressure gauge in the center between the two instruments. Now that we have figured out where we're going to mount the gauge to the handlebars, we're going to start working on the adapter in the back. We decided to go with a 90-degree or elbow bend adapter simply simply because of the clearance that we're working with. Essentially repeating the steps down at the timing cover, we're going to snip the oil line to make sure it's nice and square. Then we're going to put it in the fitting. We're going to tug on it just to make sure we have a good seal. Now that the oil line is installed and the fittings are nice and tight, we're going to start working on the gauge to make sure it's nice and tight and secure on the handlebars. Now that everything's almost ready to go, we're going to grab our cutters. We're going to cut all the zip ties. Then we're going to visually go over all the fittings and the line just to make sure that everything's ready to go prior to starting the motorcycle. Just a few tips. I hope this doesn't happen to you, but if you do get some leaks at the fittings, not at the line, but the actual fitting itself, I recommend using some Teflon tape. Just apply some Teflon tape around the threads a few laps and it should fix your oil leaks. Tip number 2, if you're not happy with the way that you routed the line, you can remove the line from the fitting. There's a tab on the fitting. You want to push it towards you. Then you want to pull on the line on the opposite end, basically tugging it outwards. If it's a little bit challenging to remove, use some pliers. Before you take your bike out for a spin, I recommend letting it sit idle for about 5 or 10 minutes. Just make sure you don't have any oil leaks and basically go over all of your work. So make sure all your fittings are tight and make sure all the oil lines are in place. If you checked everything over and everything's looking good, take the bike out for a spin. I appreciate you guys watching today's video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this video. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. If you guys are interested in your own oil pressure gauge kit, there's some links below at the bottom so you can pick up your own.